Hey everybody, welcome back to Push the Edge. I'm Lee Hall and we're talking about all things related to hiking, travel, and adventure. And so right now in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how I got started with my Grand Canyon rim to rim training. Okay, so keep in mind, first of all, that when I first made this decision that I was going to do this hike, it was fall 2020. And I'm not doing the hike until fall 2022. So when my brother and I agreed that, this is when we would do the hike, we also agreed that during the summer of 2021, we would do one hike a week that was a minimum of 10 miles. Now, I am not saying this is how you train for this hike, okay? This is just how we decided to get started with it. What I am saying is that we were not used to hiking 10 plus miles. Like for me, when I would go out on a hike, it would be, maybe in the 6 to 8 mile range, like maybe 3-ish hours, that kind of a thing, right? So I didn't even have, the mileage base or a history with this kind of mileage base that was needed for this hike. So by deciding, hey, we'll do one hike a week during the summer, that's at least 10 miles, we kind of thought this is going to help us get a taste of what it is that we're going to need to do to prepare for this hike, right? Just a taste. And see if it's something that we're going to be willing to do, because we assumed that the training in the summer of 2022, we assumed that the training in that summer leading up to the hike would be even more intense. So we had to be okay with what we saw as a minimum amount of training, all right? Because like I said, we had no experience with stuff like this. And at first, I couldn't even do 10 miles, right? So, I could do like 3 to 4, 5, 6 miles, no problem. But I just wasn't even used to walking 10 miles, particularly all at once, okay? Like maybe over the course of a day with breaks in between and whatnot, but not all at once. So for me, that's where I started, was just working on being able to walk 10 miles. And I did not go out on a trail for that. I just did it around my neighborhood. So the first time I actually did 10 miles, it was in my neighborhood. It was completely flat. And I actually stopped at my house around mile 6 because I was hungry. And I sat down on the couch and ate some chocolate covered Oreos before I continued on, right? So I will say that is the one nice thing about when I started this mileage base. I had this loop of about 3 miles that went by my house. And so I could pop in for water, bathroom break, a snack, right? I didn't have to haul anything with me. So that was really nice. And like I said, everything I did as I built this mileage base up to just 10 miles was completely flat, all right? I wasn't doing any hills. I wasn't doing elevation gain, nothing like that. I just wanted to get comfortable with building that base. And for me, that was initially challenging enough, okay? So I think that's what you want to look for, right? Is something that's challenging appropriately for you. Because right now, it's December going on January and I'm not out hiking, but when I start up again, right, to train for this hike, I'm not going to have to start in the same place that I started last summer. That's my assumption, at least. So once I got that base, then I started doing my weekly hikes on the trails. And at this point, I started doing a lot of my hikes in Rocky Mountain National Park. So I'm really fortunate. I can be on a trail in Rocky in like 60 to 90 minutes. So it's a nice day trip for me. So I found a website, and I'll put the link in the show notes, but I found a website that ranked the trails in terms of difficulty. You might agree or disagree with this, but it did give me a place in which to start. And so what I did was I didn't start with the easiest hike, but I started with a hike that I had done before that I had like a sense of difficulty about. And I just kind of slowly worked my way up that difficulty ranking, right? Those trails. I didn't do all of them. It wasn't like, okay, I did this trail, now let's do this trail, now let's do this trail. But I would do one and then, I might jump 2 or 3 up, right? And do something that's a little bit, higher in difficulty. I just used that as a guide. And usually I was clocking in 10 to 12 miles. But sometimes it was more like 8. And my way of justifying that was, it might be 8 miles, but it's a really challenging, difficult, lots of elevation gain, lots of hills. So in my mind, that was okay too. Like I did my best to hit 10 miles, but sometimes if I really wanted to take on a challenging hike that had a lot of elevation gain, the mileage might be a little bit less. And that was okay. I saw that as being okay. And then, of course, I utilized other trails of varying difficulties that were within an hour of where I lived. And by the end of the summer, by end of August, beginning of September, I was doing hikes, no problem. In the 12 to 13 mile range, I was getting up above tree line. I mean, I was just flying, right? Like I was just going. Everything was, these hikes that were being ranked as pretty difficult, like were not that difficult for me anymore, right? I was just going right through them. So by doing this once a week hike, what it allowed me to do was, allowed me to get a sense of the level of commitment that I was going to need to make. And it also helped me see that it was doable, because at the beginning of the summer, I wasn't convinced that I had signed up for, a doable hike, right? But it really, doing these weekly hikes really eased my fears in terms of the physical aspect of it. And it also allowed me to learn things about supplements and what I needed to eat before, during, and after my hikes, as well as the mental challenges that I was going to have to grapple with during the hikes. And I'm going to be talking about all of those in future videos, so stay tuned.